Vishal Singhal from Selstrat. I am co-founder and AI evangelist. Today, we are going to have Mr. Sumit Goswami, ex-CEO of QX Limited. It's a UK-based company. He will be talking to us on how RPA and is impacting the future of outsourcing. So I'll just briefly give his introduction, and you may put in your questions as and when they come to your mind, but we'll be taking all questions towards the end of the webinar, so that in the interest of time, and stay assured that all your questions would be answered, and this recording would be made available on Cellstrat YouTube channel in 2-3 days time. So anybody who drops in between or logs out in between, or others will be able to see it on our Self-Strike YouTube channel later Monday onwards. So I'll just introduce Sumit, and then I'll hand over the controls to him. So Sumit is an industry visionary with over 24 years of experience leading global organizations across various domains like healthcare services, security, telecom, and mobile applications. He has built companies ground up, set up global marketing and sales operations teams, and led companies with focus on innovation to create solutions around AI, automation, and healthcare services delivery. He was previously associated with QX Limited, LA Global, Keypoint Technologies, and Nuance Communications in senior leadership roles. Until recently, as Group CEO of QX Limited, he was responsible for the global operations of the company. In his role with a leading global and diversified healthcare private equity firm, LA Global, Sumit, as one of the business leaders, was responsible for its portfolio companies, global operations, and M&A strategy. As a group CEO and co-founder with UK-based AI and NLP provider Keypoint Technologies, he established the company grounds up and led to growth across geographies and sectors. He is a mechanical engineering graduate from India's premier institute, NIT Trichy, and he is also an angel investor and a member of few startup incubators in India. So now I'll hand over the controls to Sumit. So Sumit, over to you. You can go ahead and start the presentation. I'll be muting myself, and it will be interjecting in between if some logistics issues happen. Thanks.
Thank you, Vishal. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you, Vishal. So great. This is a very interesting opportunity and a very interesting topic to speak about. Lot going on in the market around outsourcing, and especially the technology trends around it. So fine, let me start this presentation. So I'm not sure whether we have participants from US or UK or not. Anyways, good evening India, good afternoon UK, and good morning US. So my presentation today will cover first the key outsourcing trends. I'll briefly talk about what is impacting the outsourcing industry in terms of the economic outlook and trends. Then crossing the chasm. This is very critical because this is where where most of the organizations actually fail to move to the next level, and they get stuck. So we'll talk about this, and of course. Yeah.
Sumit, people are not able to hear you. Can you please be a little louder?
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Is it better now?
Looks like. Go ahead. Yes.
Okay, great. So let me start again. Let me start with the agenda again. So I'll be covering 3 topics: key outsourcing trends, crossing the chasm, and the future of outsourcing and RPA. So let's start with the key outsourcing trends. Let's look at what is shaping the outsourcing industry, what is impacting the outsourcing industry, and how this is going to move forward beyond 2019. Right. So let's look at the economic outlook. how is the economic situation impacting the industry overall? There has been a lot of changes when outsourcing started way back in 1960s. So just to give you a brief idea about how outsourcing started, it's actually a pretty interesting story. It started in the US. It actually started through a small manufacturing setup which was based out of Mexico, developing transistor radios. Now they wanted to develop the auto parts. So this was actually a small setup in Mexico, and US was the place where this transistor radios was being manufactured. Now the US company wanted to wanted to cut down cost because of the recession that was going on in the US market at the time, and they were looking at people who can manufacture it at a low cost. They came across this small unit in Mexico, and they agreed to manufacture some parts, and that is how the first outsourcing work started through the manufacturing industry. Very interesting. It started with the blue collar industry, and then later on it moved to the white collar. Now, if you look at the economic situation today, the U.S. Administration, especially after Trump coming to power, has actually made a lot of legislations which has been both good and bad for the outsourcing industry. There has been curbs on H-1B visas. There are a lot of issues going against outsourcing. The concept of putting the American interest first is also creating lots of trouble for the industry overall. So what the large outsourcing providers have now started doing is, rather than hiring resources in India and offshoring it, now they have started looking at options of nearshoring or onshoring. Most of the players have actually started hiring very majorly in the US market at remote locations. So there are a lot of centers in the US which are pretty cost effective. Obviously not as effective as offshore locations like India, Philippines, and Vietnam, but then much better than what it used to be in the most prominent US locations. So there are such centers where onshoring is being done and people are hiring. So this has created an impact, of course, on the profitability and the bottom line of the companies into the outsourcing market. UK's outsourcing market is one of the most advanced in the world, and in fact, in terms of technology adoption, it's quite ahead. I've closely worked with the UK outsourcing market with a lot of enterprises, and I actually agree with the statement. And I've seen a lot of large enterprises moving way ahead in terms of technology adoption. Uh, but yeah, Brexit and GDPR are not actually helping. Though the outsourcing market in UK is quite advanced, but then Brexit, GDPR, and the currency fluctuations is not helping the industry. Uh, Lack of skilled IT professionals, mostly because of the issues around Brexit. A lot of professionals from the European region are now thinking of going back, or many have actually already gone back, which has created a lack of skilled professionals, just not IT, but across many sectors like healthcare. So this is an opportunity for the outsourcing providers in India and the other Asia Pacific markets. Uh, so this is how the overall economic situation looks like. If you look at the graph on the right-hand side, very interesting to note that the way India's GDP has grown, 7.3 and seven expected to be 7.4 in terms of the growth rate, and this is way ahead. Compared to the other economies. So yeah, I think the Indian market is poised at a very is at a leadership position, and I think we should take advantage of that. What are the key trends shaping the industry? If we talk about the key trends which affects the BPO industry, the OT outsourcing and demand for digital services will drive growth. So these are going to be the two uh, flag bearers of the outsourcing industry. UK and US will remain as the two largest market worldwide. APAC ranks as the fastest growing market with 8.3% annual growth rate. India and Philippines continues to maintain its dominance. But very interesting to note is that Vietnam and Malaysia are coming up as the next preferred destination. In fact, a lot of healthcare outsourcing and customer service operations are now being outsourced to Vietnam. Philippines, we always know, has been a major outsourcing market, especially for the contact center operations and very low-end data entry job. But even Vietnam is taking prominence now. Malaysia has also seen some movement in the outsourcing space. So yes, these are the markets to look out for. Uh, Replication of manual processes using RPA gains significance. Of course, this is what the topic is all about, how RPA is going to affect the future of outsourcing. And very interesting to note is that BPaaS as a segment is coming up as an emerging growth segment for the outsourcing service providers. And this is going to be extremely lucrative. In fact, when I interacted with a lot of large enterprises in the US and the UK market, I was quite shocked to know that many of them do not have a proper, a business process framework to drive their organization. And I'm not talking about small and medium enterprises. I'm talking about billion-dollar enterprises, and they look at experts, like us, to help them drive business process framework, help them draft the SOPs, write the SOPs, create a proper framework, and create the entire business process, system within the organization. So yeah, this is going to be very, very lucrative. What are the digital trends, driving the industry? There are some which are, which we have already seen, and there are some which is, which we are about to see. So, digital trends, cloud computing is on the top. So according to some of the analysts, this is expected to be about $200 billion of business from cloud computing, and we know cloud computing is primarily, responsible for powering most of the large contact centers. Uh, Information and data security, we have heard about these stories of Equifax breach about 4 or 5 years back, and the latest one was the scam from Cambridge Analytica related to Facebook. And there are many more such scams which have just taken place across data and information, and this is going to be a very, very important criteria for everybody who decides to go for outsourcing. AI and RPA, I'm not going to talk much about it now, leaving it for later slides. High-tech contact centers through cloud computing, and this is something which is already being seen in the market, and a lot of people have adopted it. Digital transformation of marketing services. So this is again a new segment, and though marketing services were being offered, to a lot of enterprises across the global markets, but digital transformation of marketing services is something very new, and a lot of people will actually start using it. HubSpot is predicting that 68% of the companies will now outsource their SEO activities to very specialized marketing services companies. The pricing models are going to change. The pricing models are not going to be anymore based on FTEs, which is full-time employees. It is going to change to outcome-based pricing. So everything is going to be driven by what kind of profitability you're able to drive for your customers. You are going to be a part of that profitability. So it will be all outcome-based. And this is something which I've personally seen in many of the contracts that I've executed, and I'm sure many of the large outsourcing companies are seeing that. Right. So we have seen the trends. We have seen what is driving the outsourcing industry now. What is the what are the barriers to transformation of this industry? What is it that is bothering the CFOs or the board of large enterprises to actually move towards digital transformation and take up digital for their outsourcing activities? Is it return on investment, or is it something else? Let's look at it. So are the organizations digital ready? I mean, this is very critical. When you actually, start transforming your organization digitally, it is just not a digital transformation. It also needs to be a complete, cultural transformation that the organization has to go through, which means your entire organization, right from the top management to the board, has to be aligned, and you have to get their buy-in before you actually start technology adoption in your enterprise. And this is extremely critical, and the reason why I'm speaking about this in this particular webinar is because everything is linked. The future of RPO, the future of BPO, the outsourcing industry is going to be driven by RPA and cognitive automation, right? So all of this cannot be done until and unless you as an enterprise or you as a service provider have digitally transformed your organization. So digital transformation is very critical, and it is extremely important that you're digitally ready. You have to cross the chasm. You have to move away from being an early adopter to one of the early majority providers or an enterprise who have adopted the technology, and this is extremely critical. Are you planning to replace your workforce with digital manpower or complementing them? This is again a very important question that people at the board level should be talking about. Is it about replacing workforce or is it about complementing them? Uh, Digitization and automation is not about replacing workforce. It is actually about enabling your organization to do better. So this is something which needs to be driven right from the top, and everybody in the organization needs to be aligned to this. Are you convinced that you need bots and not macros to automate your processes? Now, many of you may argue, why did I put this point here? And there is a very interesting incident that happened. I mean, I was in Bangalore attending one of the conferences there, and during one of the coffee breaks, I got to chat with a very a CEO of a very large outsourcing company, and he comes from the old school, and he was not able to understand the concept of automation and robotics and AI, and he still believed in the fact that automation is 4 5 years away. So he was comparing bots with macros, and he was not still able to understand why does he need bots, and why can he not automate his processes and his operations using macros? Can he not keep it simple? I agree with the concept that yes, it has to be kept simple, but then I don't think you can automate all your processes and achieve digital transformation by working on macros. So there is still a lot of people around in the industry who are not convinced about adopting automation or adopting RPA or going through a digital transformation exercise. And so there's a lot of work to be done there. So, what are some of the top barriers to digital transformation, and what is it that is actually blocking companies from going ahead and adopting automation? The topmost one is cultural resistance to change. As I said earlier in my earlier slide, it is just not the CXOs or the board which needs to adopt to this change. It is the entire organization that needs to be transformed. uh, whenever I go and personally talk to my clients and consult them on digital transformation or adopting automation, I tell them to create transformation team. The transformation team that you create should be cross-functional transformation teams, should not be hierarchical, should not be bureaucratic. Create those transformation teams, give them projects, individual projects, which can be driven by one of the team leaders of the team, and drive it. If you try to drive it from the top and just keep few people from the senior middle management or the top management being involved in the transformation project, it is never going to work. It has to be done all across the organization. There are some other barriers to digital transformation. Lack of available technology, I think this is fading off. Lack of internal innovation. Many organizations are trying to figure out how to create innovation culture within their overall system. And I think there's a lot of consulting organization available which does that. A lot of large IT ITS organizations offer this as a part of the service. So yes, insufficient partnership. Enterprises have to stop looking at their outsourcing partners as vendors. They have to look at them as partners. So the concept of vendor and customer relationship has to change. It has to become a partnership relationship. Uh, unable to reskill and develop talent. Yeah, this is very, very critical, because the moment you adopt automation, you have to reskill your talent, you have to develop talent, you have to change your entire hiring process. This needs a lot of help, both internally and externally. So yeah, this is going to be a major barrier if you're not able to reskill and develop talent. A lack of vision from leadership, as I said, there are a lot of people still not convinced about the advantages of automation, and is it really going to drive outsourcing? Lack of knowledge to execute objectives. Yeah, so these are some of the barriers to digital transformation. This is very critical to cross them if you really want to cross the charts. Right. So, what are the evolving digital talent, and how do we actually take care of the talent that we have in our organization, and how do we train them to be ready for the digital transformation or automation journey in our organization? So there are different types of digital talent that you'll actually find in an organization. There are digital immigrants. These are the people who have already crossed the charts to the digital world, and they are forced into engagement in digital channels. So it is not much of a worry for this kind of people. Then you have the next category of digital voice. So they recognize the shift to digital, but not ready to be active yet themselves. So these are people who need to be, coached. More than training, it is coaching that is important, and they need to understand and buy into the overall philosophy of digital transformation, and why do you need the digital transformation to be done, or automation to be done. So then you have the digital holdouts. They resist the shift to digital, ignoring the impact. These are again people who are not ready to adapt. They will be major resistant to change. So either you train them, you coach them, or you have to move them out. Then you have the digitally disengaged workforce, understand the digital but are avoiding engagement on purpose. These are people who are not ready to change, they are not interested, and they do not want to get trained. So very difficult to skill them. This is going to be there in every organization. Either you try to bring them into your trainable category, and try to train and coach them, or you have to shape them out. Then the digital natives, they're very, very comfortable in engaging in all digital channels, and these are mainly, people who are very active users of technology, and they read tech, they read about tech, they're passionate about it, and these are the people who can actually be your internal trainers. If you can train them across various automation technologies that you're planning to bring into your organization and make them internal trainers, they can be very good source of moving people out from the category of digital holdouts or digitally disengaged. So these are the evolving digital talent, and your entire organization has to create a AI and HR strategy to to actually transform your organization. You have to hire talent from the gig economy. You have to be transparent, and you have to provide insights across the talent acquisition team through predictive and prescriptive analytics. You have to use the concept of humanized technology, personalization, real time, right time talent strategy to hire and reskill the digital workforce. So you have to actually completely change your human resource function. Your entire HR function has to change. The HR function has to be digital friendly. You have to create an HR platform. You have to get the right digital platform. You have to get the right people who can hire the digital natives or the digital immigrants, and basically create a workforce which is ready for transformation, which is ready to absorb and work on transformation. Right. So we have seen the trends. We have looked at first the economic trends, and then we looked at the digital trends, and let's look at what's the future of outsourcing and RPA. So this is very interesting. I mean, RPA is something which we have been hearing for the last 4 years, and a lot of organizations have actually grown, and they've become unicorns. Being innovative in this field of robotic process automation, and now we have concepts of cognitive automation, and there are enterprises that started actually adopting it. Right. So what is the future of outsourcing look like, and what is it that is going to drive the outsourcing industry to 2019 and beyond, labor arbitrage. Now, outsourcing all this while was all about labor arbitrage. The reason why an enterprise in the US or UK or any of the developed economy used to outsource to us in the third world economy is primarily to take advantage of the labor arbitrage. The wage parity, the day the wage parity minimizes, this labor arbitrage will anyway go off. Even today, when we talk about digital transformation, the digital transformation, or we talk about a future ready, outsourcing service provider, the engagement is not based on labor arbitrage, but the engagement is based on value creation, right? And this is what is going to drive the future of outsourcing. Outsourcing is all going to be about value creation and not labor or wage arbitrage anymore. Cognitive RPA is going to drive outsourcing. This is going to be one of the four pillars of the future of outsourcing. Uh, Cognitive RPA is nothing but providing intelligence to your bots. Uh, AI gets merged with your bots, and that becomes cognitive RPA. One office. Now, this is a concept which is very, very new to the industry, and basically, one office is a digitally enabled, intelligent automation and smart connected single office. So, if you look at the contact centers today, which have adopted technology, they are actually one office. They work on the one office concept because they are digitally enabled. They have intelligent automation working in them. They've implemented cloud computing, and they work on the concept of smart connected single office. So this is going to be another very important factor in driving outsourcing, in the days to come. Cloud computing, I've spoken a lot about cloud computing. Cloud computing is nothing but enabling your various services over the cloud, delivery of on-demand computing services for contact centers. Basically, the contact centers use on-demand delivery of services available on the cloud. And this is something which is driving the entire contact center industry. I mean, if you happen to work with any of the contact centers today, you will actually see a lot of technology being used both on the front end and the back end. And then BPaaS. This is a very new emerging segment and a very important factor to drive outsourcing, where you start offering business process as a service. And one of the most lucrative offering for enterprises today, because most of the large enterprises have never concentrated on creating a proper business process framework. They lack a business process framework. They were never invested time and energy in creating that. Most of the enterprises have their internal resources or business excellence teams with skill sets around Six Sigma and Kaizen and many other business process concepts, but they've never institutionalized this process. They've never created a framework around it. They've not been serious about it, and this is something which I practically experienced when I've spoken to lots of large enterprises across industry sectors like manufacturing, FMCG, healthcare, both in UK and the US, and everywhere that I've gone to and met people and spoken about, while pitching for automation as a service, and we touch base on their business processes, they've all said the same thing, that we do not have anything documented. We do not have, standard operating procedures written down. We do not have it in one single place. We do not have a platform for business process through which we can achieve, business excellence. And there is no proper guideline within the organization. We do not know whom to go to. So this is going to be a huge lucrative industry and huge opportunity, right? So these are the four pillars of outsourcing, and this is what is going to drive the future of outsourcing. So it is not about being cheap anymore. Cost factor is gone. It's about being digitally enabled. It is about being smart. That is what is going to drive the future of outsourcing. Just a simple illustration of what is the difference between bots and robotics and cognitive automation. Robotics primarily means just a handwork where you enter data from one application to the other, whereas cognitive automation is basically working on unstructured data from unstructured sources and applying intelligence on it. That is cognitive automation. Right. So, what are the next generation tech levers, which is actually going to drive the outsourcing industry? And I've already spoken about them. So, the service delivery, the entire service delivery automation will be driven primarily by RPA. We've already spoken about it. BPaaS, which is business process as service, cognitive, automation, and AI combined with AI. Analytics is going to be again a very, very key element, a very important tech lever, and IoT, of course. A lot of large enterprises have invested or have already invested in BI and analytics, and they're doing good amount of work with data. And you must have all heard about data is the new oil. Concept of data is the new oil, right? So, and it's actually true. Most of the organization or most of our customers today have huge amount of data that they work with, both structured and unstructured. But many of them do not know what to do with that data, how to make, how to derive insights out of it. Can they use the data to predict outcomes? Can they use it for prescriptive analytics? So they're clueless about it, and this is again a huge opportunity for outsourcing service providers. Uh, and yes, blockchain is something which we're still hearing about. I'm not sure what kind of an impact it will have on the BPS industry, but definitely for the BFSI and the insurance sector, blockchain will play a key role. But I'm not touching on it now. Let's focus only on RPA. Yeah, so these are going to be the tech levers, which is going to drive the future of outsourcing. Yeah, so RPA is the new outsourcing, right? So robotic process automation is what is going to drive outsourcing going forward, and research is actually proving that. If you look at this particular graph that I'm showing out here, this is a study which was conducted by HFS and KPMG about a couple of months back in 2018 with 380 global organizations spread across both UK and the US. And their questions were primarily around investments on outsourcing and RPA. Now, if you look at this BFS, the organizations have said more than 50% of the organization are going to invest on on RPA compared to 10% on outsourcing. If you look at insurance, 58% are going to invest in RPA and 10% only on outsourcing. So most of the industry verticals are looking very, very seriously at investing in RPA. So RPA is the new outsourcing, and there is no doubt about that. CFOs are willing to invest more in RPA than outsourcing, and that's the best that's the best part about this this trend that we are seeing today. Telecom industry has always been quite averse of outsourcing, other than of course the contact centers, and that has primarily been because of their security concerns. But now they have started looking at RPA very, very seriously, and RPA can actually help a lot in both the front end and the back end operations. So telecom is going to be a major player, industry sector where RPA will play a major role. The focus will shift to value from cost with RPA. So yeah, RPA is the new outsourcing, and this is going to be very, very interesting. What are the C-suite directives across industries? What are they thinking about in terms of their decisions or their mission critical directives that they give for operational changes? So if I look at some of the major ones, if you look at the last one in the graph on your right hand side, invest in cognitive technologies and machine learning to reduce reliance on mid and high skilled labor. So software and high tech industry, majority of them are actually giving this directive. accelerate speed to market with new products. Then you have align middle or back office operations to improve customer experiences. Look at this, invest in process automation and robotics to reduce reliance on low skilled labor. So the directive from the C-suite is to invest in technology, and it is what we are looking at is it's a trend across different industry segments. What about the enterprise and service provider relationship? How is this going to change? Because this is going to be very, very critical. If an enterprise and service provider do not move away from the vendor relationship that they had over all these years, this is never ever going to work. Now, as per this survey, enterprises are actually looking at taking help from their service providers to roll out an automation strategy. So 45% say yes, they are ready to work with the service provider to roll out an automation strategy, and this is very, very healthy. So this is extremely critical. If they don't work with in tandem, this is never ever going to work. Automation as a service and BPaaS as a service has huge scope, and both of this will be driven by the C-suites and the board. And if the board and the C-suite are in agreement that this is critical, this is mission critical, I think we are going to see a very, very rapid change in the way the industry is going to work. Right. So let's look at how this entire smart workforce within digital transformation works. So typically, a smart workforce in one office concept would include chatbots. They would also include human agents, which are basically the current workforce that we have today. Then agent assisted robots, RPA robots, and cognitive robots. Each of this team will be managed by a digitally trained service delivery manager. So normally, in a current BPO or outsourcing setup, you have teams which are normally headed by a service delivery manager. Under the service delivery managers, you have team leaders, and then you have the human agents. Each of the human agents are assigned a particular manual or repetitive task that he or she does. uh, each of these teams is headed by a team leader. The team leader reports into the service delivery manager. Now, what is going to happen is the human agents will be complemented by bots. These bots will do some of the repetitive manual tasks that the human agents were doing. Human agents will now start assisting the bots in some of the activities where human assistance is needed. So the robots will become a part of this workforce. There will also be cognitive bots with capability to understand unstructured data. Now, the normal bots that I've shown in a previous slide as an example, which does not have the intelligence, may not be able to understand unstructured data or put some intelligence around it to process that data. Now that will be done by cognitive bots. So all of this will become a part of a smart workforce. This is how your organization will look like. Right from the front end, we will have the chatbots, and in the back end, we'll have the human agents, the agent assisted robots, the RPA robots, and the cognitive robots. This entire workforce will be managed and controlled by SDM who has been trained to manage a digital workforce. This is how your smart workforce in a one office situation is going to look like. This is going to be the future of outsourcing. I've just shown another example here to show you how the cognitive robots will, where will they be placed? Now, if you look at this particular example, you have data coming in from multiple data sources, and we now have unstructured data coming in. The human agents and the cognitive robots, they have the capability to capture the relevant information in a structured format. This data is then passed on to the cognitive robots who take out meaning from the unstructured data, analyze it, put intelligence on it, and then this data is passed on for execution and the backend transaction process. This is how the entire, the smart workforce would look like, with cognitive robots included in it. Right. So we have spoken about, we have spoken about what is RPA, how does a smart workforce look like, and we have spoken about the industry trends. So who are the, let's talk about the RPA service providers. How does this market of RPA look like? Who are a part of this ecosystem? Now, the RPA service today is being provided by consulting firms. They are being provided by the IT service providers, business process service providers, and the niche players. Now, the consultant firms are basically, the big fours like Deloitte, Ernst& Young, and KPMG, and they offer RPA as a part of the digital transformation story. So these are the people who mostly act as consultants and not as your implementation partners. Then you have the IT service providers for whom, and they are players like IBM, Cognizant, Capgemini, Hexaware, and the Wipros, and then the Accentures, TCS, and etc. Now these providers have RPA as a part of their intelligent automation story. Now they provide a complete end-to-end solution, right from consultancy to implementation. Implementation is done with their implementation partners, and I'll come to that who the implementation partners are. Then you have the business process service provider. These are basically the BPM players, the business process management players, and for them, RPA is a part of their task and process automation. And there are players like Genpact, WNS, EXL. We are also a part of this particular category. And then the very niche service providers who specialize in providing RPA consulting services, and they sometimes even act as implementation partners. Uh, and then they're very focused in this particular area. They don't do anything else. So players like Symphony Ventures, Mindfield, TBS, YM Labs, and there are many more players like Antworks and others who actually do this, and they're a niche service provider. And we also have the RPA technology, RPA consultancy providers. Now, let's look at how they work. So, if I look at Deloitte, EY, and KPMG, each one of them have their own technology partners, and most of them actually work with the same. So, Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism, and UiPath are the three largest RPA technology providers in the market today. They work as technology partners for most of the consulting providers and the IT service providers and the business process service providers that we have seen in previous slide. So Ernst& Young has a slightly different set of our technology providers. They have Antworks as a part of their portfolio, and KPMG has Thoughtnomy, Nice, Kofax as their partners, Softmotive as their partners. But this market is being led by Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism, and UiPath, and they're the market leaders today. Right. So, yes, I think we have come to the end of this presentation. So, businesses are looking to gain competitive advantage through smart adoption of technology and a transformation in their process and work culture. Now, as I said earlier, it is very critical for service providers to move away from ROI based offerings. They should not concentrate on FTE based pricing and ROI based offerings. They have to move to value based offerings where it is a business model based on outcome. And this is what the enterprises are looking at. Enterprises are looking at partners and not vendors. CFOs and the board have a huge role to play, along with the CEO and the CEO, to drive transformation and create a long-term sustainable business. Uh, Earlier, the concept of automation and outsourcing was primarily being driven by the CEO and the COO to drive profitability. Most of the time, we have seen that the proposal of outsourcing used to get stuck down by the CFO and used to, lay at the CFO's desk for weeks or months together. But now things have changed. CFOs have actually become the main driver of automation because they have realized the value that automation it can bring to their organization and to their even their own function as well. And hence, it is the entire CXO pool that is actually driving transformation. And that is what, as service providers, we have to do. We have to drive this with the board, with the CXOs, and create a long-term sustainable business being a partner. So thank you so much. I've come to the end of the presentation. Open for questions now.
Thank you, Sumit. So we have quite a few questions here. Although people are trying to put more, I believe they have been listening to you more sincerely. Now we'll be receiving some questions. Meanwhile, uh, so I think you should come to your last slide. There you will be able to show your last slide, your contact details.
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay. So guys, you can take down his contact details if you want to ask anything from him, or you can direct the questions to us, and we can revert back to you later on with this consultation. Meanwhile, questions are so somebody asks, what is C-suite?
Okay, so C-suite is basically your CXOs. They are the chief operating officers, the chief executive officer, the chief financial officer. You now have the chief strategy officer and the chief digital officer. So these are the roles which form a part of the C-suite.
Right. Next is it necessary to know how to create this service before starting up?
Uh, I'm not sure whether I've understood the question. When you say starting up, what do you mean by that? So
So
let me
probably
let me
this can, yeah.
let me answer what based on what I have understood. When you say starting up, do you mean starting up your digital transformation journey? I think yes, it is important that you understand what is automation and what all is involved in automation because selecting the right vendor and the right partner to help you with your automation journey is extremely critical. And there are, as have shown in my slides, there are different categories of service providers, right? There are consulting partners, there are technology partners, and there are service providers. So, if you decide to go with a consulting partner, they may not be able to do the implementation for you. They will only come and assess your processes and systems and tell you what is the amount of automation that you can do and what is the cost saving that you can derive, and they will actually then suggest a technology partner for you. So they'll not be there with you throughout the journey, uh, right? So but if you go ahead with a technology partner like an Automation Anywhere or UiPath or Blue Prism, they actually can step in right at the beginning of your automation journey, help you understand what process needs to be automated. They can also do a POC for you, a proof of concept, and then help you set up your center of excellence to have the right resources to do the automation, create bots, and then help you with implementation of your automation software and automation toolkit and the center of excellence. So it is very very critical that how do you want to start, and who do you want to go with, and what is your transformation journey, what is your end goal that you're looking at, what do you want to achieve.
Okay. Uh, Somebody is asking, how should I start my career in RPA when I have 3 years of experience in IT in various technologies?
Right. So if you already are a IT technology professional, it is actually quite easy for you because you understand the landscape. You need to get yourself trained on, in artificial intelligence. You need to understand the concepts of AI. And there are very specific courses available on RPA as well because RPA, professionals are in huge demand today. It's very, very difficult to get people with proper RPA skill sets. You can come in as an RPA, developer. If you have a certain amount of experience, you can join, or you can take up a role of an RPA project manager or an RPA program manager. and even a quality analyst. So there are many roles available, and there are many training courses available. In fact, Cellstat themselves offer training on artificial intelligence and automation. So you can contact Cellstat Vishal as well.
Right, thank you. So, uh, probably you can give some other session on what all goes into learning RPA and things like that, probably in another session. So that could be
Sure.
a good session for audience here. Uh, somebody, yeah. So we are recording this session and it will be uploaded on our Selfstat YouTube channel. You can check back if you look for Selfstat on YouTube. You'll be able to find our channel and you'll find this video recording there from Monday onwards. So uh, s- some gentleman is asking, can you suggest some good courses currently available in RPA?
Right. So if you can drop in your contact details, I can get back to you with some of the courses that is available on RPA.
Okay. Okay. So one question from me, Sumit. So I heard in a conference and some gentleman from Wipro was saying that deploying RPA involves huge costs. So how small a organization should be going for an RPA because RPA automation, because if a bot is costing maybe $5,000 to $10,000 per annum of licensing, uh, how good it would be for a small organization and how small a organization can go for it? Or what are the other means where cost can be reduced, not paying $5,000 or dollars just for a license for 1 year?
Right. So Vishal, I think in my presentation I mentioned it very clearly. You have to look at RPA, not as not as an R tool for generating ROI. Right. It's not for ROI, but it's more for helping your business transform. Right. So this is a
Correct.
transformation journey. If you think you are at a stage, your organization is at a stage where it needs transformation, yes, you should do it. I'd shown the cross the chasm graph,
Mm,
right? If you are an early adopter, you are not ready for automation yet, but you have crossed the early adopter and you're ready to cross the chasm. Then you can
mm,
start adopting automation. Automation is expensive, definitely, yes,
right.
but then the payback period is very attractive. If you go for automation, if you do it properly, you can immediately start seeing the benefits coming. And in fact, there have been cases where within 3 to 4 months of implementation, 20 to 30% savings have been achieved. So there are lots and lots of use cases where automation has helped organizations achieve great profitability and improve their efficiencies. It's a transformation journey. It is
Right.
not a tool to where you can measure your ROI, right? So
Right.
so it's very critical. It's a very critical decision, and you need to be committed towards it.
Sure. Sure. Uh, could you please explain, question here, could you please explain RPA for non-programming guys?
Right. So for non-programming guys, I'm sure many of you may have used Excel, right? And within Excel, we actually write very small, we have formulas in it which helps us, quickly perform certain tasks, right? Like calculations, sum up rows of numbers or those kind of stuff. So that's a very simple way of explaining how you make a certain task very easy, right? So this is exactly what your bot does. Bot makes a certain task easy, right? So I'll give you an example. I mean, suppose you run a small say accountancy firm, and you're an accountant and you receive say 1,000 invoices every day from your from one of your customers, and these invoices have to be processed. They basically have to be read. The data in the invoices has to be read. The data has to be extracted. It has to be input in a accounting software, right? So this is a very simple task that you have been given by your client. Now, how would you normally do it? You would actually, if you're doing it manually, what you'll do is the person who's doing it, the human being who's doing it, will go through each of the invoices, read the data in it, and there could be many data elements like the item which is there in the invoice, the price, the GST number, and so on and so forth. So you have to read all of this, data. You have to take the data and then you have to input it manually onto the accounting software. Now this is being done by you manually, right? You're reading the data, you're extracting the data, you're reading the data, and then you're inputting it. What if I make this process automated? What if I write a very simple program and tell that program to read the data from the invoice and put it on the field that I've defined in the program in the accounting software? So that program becomes the bot. That program is the bot. Bot is nothing but a software that you have given some intelligence to perform a task.
Right. Good, very good explanation there. So, how much of a resistance did you see from current management in adopting RPA in any organization for the context?
Uh, See, the most of the issues while implementing RPA comes in from the myth around the cost involved, right? So people consider RPA to be a holy grail, and they feel that it comes with a magic wand where the moment you implement it, you get 30-40% savings. That's not the way it is. RPA is a part of digital transformation, right? RPA is a journey that you go to transform your organization. If you have an organization where you have 1,000 people working and those 1,000 people are doing a manual repetitive task every day for 9 hours, is it a very effective way of doing your business? It is not. What if I replace this 1,000 people out of this thousand, say 200 people with bots, and we make those bots do this manual repetitive task? And the 200 people that I've replaced, can I give them additional services to do something else which is more productive? Right. So what I have gained is I've made those the task that those 200 people were doing extremely efficient, 24 by 7, working 24 by 7, accurate. And over and above this, I've actually generated an additional workforce pool of 200 resources, which can be deployed to generate more revenues for me, for my organization. Right? So these are the benefits that I get when I actually adopt RPA. And this is something which will take time for people to understand. You need to,
So,
as service providers, we need to ensure that the C-suite, the board, move away from the mentality of calculating ROI and understand the value that this brings to the organization.
some person is saying, please forgive me, those 200 people will be laid off. Is that the
I,
reality?
I said that those 200 people will actually be deployed in some other work, which will generate additional revenue. See, robotic process automation or automation is not a tool to make the workforce redundant. It is to complement your workforce, to do something better and something else, right? So that is how this has to be seen. Robotics will always not lead to reduction in manpower. No, it will lead to a generation of additional manpower in your organization, which can be used for doing other job which generates revenues, right? If I have 200 additional full-time employees with me, so I have the opportunity of generating revenues from those 200 full-time employees.
So this gentleman is saying that no organization would be there to who would be training these 200 employees. Well, question is genuine, but they have to understand automation has to be done for productivity, better productivity in an organization.
See,
So,
no, okay, so let me also be very blunt here. If you feel you are a part of the 200 and you are not ready to be skilled, you're not ready to be trained, you don't want to be trained, then of course, your job is going to be at threat. And that is not only with automation coming in, even if your organization is not going through a digital transformation journey or automation, you are not getting yourself trained or you're not skilling yourself, you will anyways be not be a part of your organization. Nobody today is interested to have an employee on board who is not, skilling himself.
mm,
You have to keep
right,
retraining yourself, right? And this is something which you have to do. Your organization cannot force you to do. You have to show that initiative to do. Every organization has a learning and development team. You have to take the initiative to do that learning and development. You have to take the initiative to join a online course. Everything is available online today, right? You don't need to go and do weekend classes. You can just learn anything online. I have done blockchain courses at this after 25 years of service, for two days in a week, and I did it overnight. I mean, I did it. I spent 3 hours, two consecutive nights, and did it. I finished it. So you have to have the
right.
passion to learn, right?
We face this question from a lot of students coming to Self-Study for AI education, and we are seeing many 15-year plus 20 years, even 30-year experience people are saying that I want to learn this, otherwise my job will go. So
No,
that is
absolutely,
that.
yes, yes. And that's true for any profession, right? And that's true for any
Right,
profession. If you're a healthcare professional, say a nurse or a doctor, and you say I'll not learn the latest technologies of medical transcription or coding, computer assisted coding, you will be thrown out of your job.
right, right. Now, next question is, although we are shooting about the time, just three, four more questions here. Uh, will RPA totally wipe out the traditional outsourcing, or will still there be a complementing role to play by traditional outsourcing model?
Excellent question. Excellent question. In fact, I forgot to talk about this. Right. So RPA is going to be adopted, in the near future, say 2 to 3 years, by large and medium enterprises, which have understood the concept of digital transformation, and they feel this is necessary for their business. But there is still a huge segment in the market of SMEs across the developed countries, which still needs outsourcing, which is still finding it difficult to get the right skill sets or the right resources to run their organization and critical functions. So they would still need outsourcing. They would still need to do outsourcing, and hence the outsourcing industry will never die, right? And it will only keep growing as and when we see the SME industry growing.
Nice, nice respite from the threat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Next is, can RPA be used in mainframe systems as well?
Yes, it can be used in mainframe systems. Not all technology providers support that. So you'll have to be very specific in choosing your technology provider.
Okay, I think questions have ended here. So thanks a lot, Sumit. So as I mentioned earlier, all the presentation and video would be uploaded on Self-Start YouTube channel. You're free to ask any questions directly to Sumit or send us any questions that you may have. We have a lot of courses, but we have run out of time, so I'll be taking I keep on taking careers webinar on AI at various intervals. I'll be doing that again in uh, January and or February, so you can attend those webinars to understand how you can get into AI or automation field. And Sumit, I sincerely feel that you should take a session on what all opportunities exist in RPA domain, as well as courses that can be taken and how people can get into it, or what are the prerequisites. So that would be a good session, and I think asked by a lot of people.
Sure, sure, definitely.
So thanks a lot, and have a good night and good day to the rest of the world.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Vishal. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.